Hi guys, so today we're going to kind of review a little bit of long division. You did do this in Math 3, so it should be a review, but we're going to kind of go over long division and then also a little bit of synthetic division as well. All right, so you should be on your notes on this page that says warm up right here, and the directions say use long division to find each quotient. So we're going to kind of run down the even side, so 2, 4, and 6. And then we'll kind of go from there. So the first one is just a review of long division with numbers. So remember 5, 4, 6, 7 divided by 13. So this is kind of what you did back in like elementary school. So remember, I'm going to see, does 13 go into 5? It does not. Does 13 go into 54? Yes, it does. So we're going to try to figure out what that would be. So 13 times 4 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, so that's 52. So it goes in 4 times. And then subtract down, because 13 times 4 gives me that 52. Okay. Then 13 doesn't go into 2, so I need to bring down the 6. And 13 does go into 26. It goes in there twice. Okay. So then I'm going to do 13 times 2 again is 26. And then I get 0. It doesn't go into 0 at all. Bring down the 7. It doesn't go into 7 at all, so it goes in 0 times. So it's going to be 420 remainder 7. Okay? All right, so now let's do an example with polynomials. You will need to know how to do it. If you want to use synthetic division on some of them, that's fine, and I'll show you that in a second. But you do need to know how to do long division for an example like number 6, where you're dividing by something like x squared. So first we're going to write out 3x to the third plus 2x squared minus 37x plus 12 divided by x plus 4. And it's the exact same concept as what we just did. So first thing you're going to do is think about how many times does x go into, or x times what will give me 3x to the third. And the answer to that question is 3x squared. So then I'm going to multiply both pieces. So 3x squared times x gives me 3x to the third. Then I need to multiply my second piece. So 3x squared times 4 is 12x squared. And then we're going to subtract, always subtracting. So 3x to the third minus 3x to the third is nothing. That should cancel out if you do it correctly. And then 2x squared minus 12x squared is negative 10x squared. And then we're just going to repeat the process. So we're thinking x times what will give me negative 10x squared? And that's negative 10x. I'm going to go ahead and bring down my negative 37x from the problem. And then I'm just going to multiply both pieces like we did in the previous one. So negative 10x times x is negative 10x squared. And negative 10x times 4 is negative 40x. When I subtract, now be careful here because we're doing a negative minus a negative. So that's really negative 10x squared plus 10x squared, which would cancel out. And then over here, negative 37x minus negative 40x would be 3x. Okay, so that's 3x. And then we're going to bring down my 12. All right, and then we're going to repeat the process again. So x times what up here will give me 3x. That would be 3. And then we're going to multiply both pieces. So 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 4 is 12. And you'll notice in this one, everything cancels out, so that means there's no remainder. Your final answer is what's at the top, 3x squared minus 10x plus 3. All right, so let's do another example. Let's do number 6. This time I'm dividing by x squared plus 8. So x to the fourth plus 3x to the third plus 4x squared plus 24x minus 32. So same process here. You're thinking x squared times what will give you x to the fourth, and that's x squared. And then multiply both pieces. Now you'll notice when I multiply both pieces, the first one will be x to the fourth, and then it will be 8x squared. So I'm going to go ahead and write plus 0x to the third because there's no x to the thirds that I have. And then I'm going to subtract down. So I get 3x to the third minus 4x squared. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. So x squared times what will give me 3x to the third, and that's 3x. And then I'm going to again multiply both pieces. So 3x times x squared gives me 3x to the third, and 3x times 8 gives me 24x. Notice again that there's a missing term, so I'm going to just leave that as plus 0x squared. All right, subtract down, my x cubes will cancel out. And then I have negative 4x squared minus 0x squared is just negative 4x squared. And then I have 24x. So let me actually go ahead and bring that down. So 24x minus 24x gives me 0x. Okay, and then I'm going to bring down my last term. So lastly, I asked myself negative 4x squared divided by x squared is negative 4. And then multiply both pieces, I get negative 4x squared minus 32. Okay, 8 times negative 4. Subtracting both, my x squareds will cancel out. I don't have any x's, and then I have negative 32 minus negative 32, which would also cancel out, and I'm left with 0 as my remainder. So my final answer is just x squared plus 3x minus 4. All right, so like I said, you do need to know how to do long division for a problem like number 6, but sometimes synthetic division will be a lot faster. Okay, so I'm just going to go down the right side again. This time we're going to do synthetic division. You do not have to know how to do synthetic division if you can do long division, but it might be a quicker way to do it. So first I'm going to set this equal to 0 and solve for x, whatever you're dividing by. So I get x equals 2. That's what's going to go in your box up here. Okay, then I'm going to just take the coefficients, 3, negative 22, positive 37, and negative 10. All right, I always bring down my first term, which is 3, and then I multiply by what's in my box. So 3 times 2 is 6. Then you add down. So negative 22 plus 6 is negative 16. Then same process, multiply by what's in your box. Negative 16 times 2 is negative 32, and that just goes up and over. Add down, 37 plus negative 32 is 5. Multiply, 5 times 2 is 10. And then when you add negative 10 plus 10, that's 0. So what do these numbers in the bottom mean? A lot of times I will draw a line right there to show that's going to be your answer. The last number is the remainder, so this time we have no remainder. Then it increases exponent from left to right, or from right to left, excuse me. So this right here would be your constant. This would be your x, and this would be your x squared. If you had another term, that would just be x cubed. So it will look like 3x squared minus 16x plus 5. And there's no remainder, so I don't need to write that. We'll talk about in a second what happens if there is a remainder. All right, so let's do another one where there is a remainder. So let's use synthetic division again because we've only done one of those. First, I'm going to set that equal to 0 and solve for x. So x equals 3. And take my coefficients. Okay, bring down the first term. 4 times 3 in my box is 12. So that goes up and over. And then we always add down with synthetic division. So negative 16 plus 12 is negative 4. Multiply by what's in your box. That gives me negative 12. Add down, that's 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Add down is 8. So remember, this is your remainder. This is your constant. This is your x. And this is your x squared. So it will look like 4x squared minus 4x plus 8, and then your remainder, which is 8 right here, I'm going to take 8 over whatever you divided by. So that's x minus 3. So this last part here, how to write your remainder, it's the remainder over what you divided by. Right? All right, lastly, we're going to do one more example. This time you'll notice that some terms are missing. So I'm going to rewrite this as, one second. I'm going to rewrite this as x to the fourth minus 9x to the third plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 1. The x squared and the x were missing, so I need to write them as zeros. Do this whether or not you're doing long division or synthetic. From here, same process. X minus 9 equals 0, x equals 9. That's the number that goes in my box. Then my coefficients, 1, negative 9, 0, 0, negative 1. And that's why that's important, because your coefficients will look different if you don't put those placeholders in. All right, bring down the first term. 1 times 9 is 9. Add down 0. 0 times 9 is 0. Add down 0. 0 times 9 is 0. Add down is still 0. 0 times 9 is 0. Add down is negative 1. So this right here is your remainder. This is your constant. This is your x. This is your x squared. And this would be your x cubed. So notice we don't have any x squared, x, or a constant term. So it's just going to look like x to the third plus my remainder, which is negative 1, over what I divided by, which is x minus 9. I could also put x to the third minus 1 over x minus 9. Same thing there. All right, so now we're going to do one or two examples where we kind of put this all together with some factoring and some division and all of that. So we're going to do two examples. We're going to do this first one up here and number 18. All right, so it says use division to write f of x in factored form if we know x is a factor. So if we know something is a factor, there should be no remainder. So for example, 4 is a factor of 20. So if I do 20 divided by 4, that's 5, no remainder. So if I tell you it's a factor, you should know that there should be no remainder. If you get a remainder, you did it wrong. Okay? So we want to write this completely factored and find the zeros. So I'm going to do synthetic division just because it goes a little faster. But if you use long division, you should get the exact same answer. So x minus 4 equals 0, x equals 4, because that's what I'm dividing by, and I know there should be no remainder. Then I'm going to take my coefficients and put them across the top, and I'm just going to divide it. So bring down the 1. 1 times 4 is 4. Add down is negative 1. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Add down is negative 2. Multiply is negative 8. Add down is 0. Notice I get 0 as my remainder. So that answer will look like x squared minus x minus 2. Now, this is something that I know how to factor. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to negative 2 and add to negative 1 are negative 2 and positive 1. That's how that will factor. So to write f of x completely in factored form, that's going to look like x minus 2, x plus 1, are factors from this part, and then don't forget the factor they gave you, which was x minus 4. So then lastly, to find your zeros here, set each of these parts equal to 0. So x equals 2, x equals negative 1, and x equals 4. Okay. All right. Next, I'm actually going to do number 19 because it's going to involve some factoring with a leading coefficient, which we need to remember how to do. All right, so first I'm going to do x plus 3 equals 0. So x equals negative 3. Take my coefficients. And first I'm just going to divide. At this point, we should be hopefully a little bit more comfortable with division. So bring down the 2. I have negative 6. Add down negative 9, multiply 27, add down negative 5, positive 15, and 0. Again, they told you this was a factor, so that should give me a remainder of 0. So then I have 2x squared minus 9x minus 5, and we need to factor that. So two numbers that multiply to negative 10, because 2 times negative 5, and add to negative 9. Those are going to be negative 10 and positive 1. Okay, so remember there's a couple different ways to factor. I'm going to show you grouping on this one. So 2x squared, I'm going to take one of my terms, minus 10x plus 1x minus 5. So all I did was rewrote that part right there with my factors. Again, I don't care how you factor, but you need to be able to factor. All right, so then it's just a factoring by grouping problem. GCF of the first two terms is 2x, and then x minus 5. And then this part right here, remember we want this to match. So all that you're taking out there, it already does match. So all that I'm going to factor out there is a positive 1. So then I have two factors, one from the one that was in common, x minus 5, and 2x plus 1. So then if we want to write the entire thing in factored form, we already have two factors, and then they gave me the last one of x plus 3. So that would be it written completely in factored form. So then lastly, to get the zeros, remember you set them all equal to 0. So I get x equals positive 5, x equals negative 1/2, and x equals negative 3. Those would be your 2 or 3 roots of the polynomial. Okay, so you'll have a little bit of time to practice this, but that's kind of an overview / review of synthetic and long division.